Welcome back, everybody. Fresh looks, fan favorites, and RP Show exclusives, all at rodpeterson.com. Click on RP Show store, mugs, hats, hoodies. We got it all. T-shirts. Okay, Mike Richards, the iconic Canadian sports broadcaster. Before we get to the sports, Robert Redford passing away today at age 89. Who's the GOAT of Hollywood, Mike? If it's not Robert Redford,
Oh,
who is it? Yeah, in your mind, who is it?
oh no! If you're gonna put him as the GOAT, I have no problem with that. The guy was magic. He's one of these people that as soon as even as a kid, watching like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, you just see literally like this. There's an aura, right? It was like this glow of this blonde hair, those looks, and then just his voice. I mean, this is when we talk about the greatest of all time. I got no problem saying Robert Redford was the greatest of all time. And here's the irony: in Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, there was that lead actress, that was on the big bicycle, the girl with the dark hair, that big romantic scene. My wife looks exactly like that actress. I can't think of her name
Ooh.
right now, but
Your
I
wife's
did
name?
well. I outkicked my coverage. I
You can't
used
think of
cough
your
syrup.
wife's name?
What's that? Oh
You
no.
said you can't.
Well, I want to say Linda, but don't hold me to that.
Gotcha. Okay, move, moving on. Our poll question today: should Tom Brady be allowed to own a team in the NFL and also be the lead analyst on Fox? You saw him in the coach's suite last night with a headset on. What do you think?
if if that's the worst thing you can think of with one of these guys in the NFL that owns an NFL franchise, then you simply don't know the guys who own NFL franchises and the stuff that they've been involved with. This should be the least of your concerns that he's an analyst. The other things that some of these guys have pulled in their lifetime is hardly on the same level. Look, I like I keep calling him, I like that boy. He's never aged. I don't know if you've ever seen Interview with a Vampire, but at some point I don't know how long he keeps those looks and just his ability to have that enthusiasm. I've got no problem with that. I mean, considering what the Raiders have been owned by before, are you telling me that in the Al Davis world that he'd be concerned that someone was actually on television talking about games? Yeah. Yeah, there was a time if you said something about Al, you could be floating face down in the water somewhere. So you know what? I don't have a problem with Tom Brady being part owner.
Okay, cool. All right, those are the two things I wanted to ask you about: Robert Redford and Tom Brady. What has your sports focus these days, Mike Richards?
Well, I would say that aside from getting into where to me the meat of the CFL, because it has been just what a crazy run. What I've seen the Alouettes taking out the Riders. I mean, I sat there with my mouth open. It was just unbelievable what had happened. But the one thing that aside of what a cat and dog sort of race this has been in the Canadian Football League is my continual disappointment at the level of football in the NFL in terms of their preparedness. Now, when you have a preseason that is absolutely the biggest waste of time, you're not going to see the starters. You're certainly not going to see the starting quarterback. It's a great exercise for the coaching staff. I get all that. I've coached football. I love football. You and I both come from the same area where we like all kinds of football. We're not just stagnant, sticking at, statically at one league. We like all of it. But at some point, they're going to have to address it. Now, I know they want to play more games, so maybe this is what they do. They get rid of a couple of those waste of time preseason. But by the time you get to week one, even into week two, how many flags have you seen? How many offensive linemen are
Wow.
jumping the snap count because they don't know it? How many times the ball being thrown behind guys, guys out of position? Even the coaching. Yes, the coaching. Well, last night, 12 guys on the field. It's not a CFL game. I'm watching this thing thinking, what is the problem is by the time you get to week one, I don't think we really know, Rod, that we can see the potential or the draw of what that team is going to be by what, week three?
No.
Maybe four, but it's definitely into week number three because some teams just don't look like they're ready to play football. And when you're looking at the cash cow that the NFL is, the kinds of prices that guys like Jerry Jones and everybody else and all the other billionaires are charging these people to even get seat licensing. Yeah, I didn't think that'd be a thing as a kid. Seat licenses. Now you're going to sit there and see a team that just really, even Houston at times last night were so disjointed. It was just really difficult to watch. So that's the one thing that's been on my radar is just how bad are some of these guys going to be in the first couple of weeks? Because I love as I said, football is something that I love. I love big time players. Watching Josh Allen to me is just a thing of beauty. I'm such a fan of his. Have been since he and his dad worked on him getting out of high school, trying to find even one school that would give him a shot. And even when he gets to the school, they're not so sure. And then when he gets to the NFL, guys that I absolutely respect were like, what would you possibly see in this guy, Mike? I don't even know why you even talk about this guy. He's a great story. He's a really good person. And he has proved that he's ready to go. But I got to tell you, Rod, the rest of the league at times, I mean, just take a look in the mirror, because those first 2 weeks, some of these teams are dreadful. And look at the injuries. Look at that. I'm not blaming all of it on the fact, because it can happen anytime. It is a contact league with some of the biggest human beings you'd ever see. But there's still that aching thing in the back of that just says to me, take week 1 seriously. Can you just do that for us? We're paying for it. You're getting a lot of money. Week 1, look like a professional team.
Mm-hmm. Well, and hey, I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm watching that New York-Dallas game, and the Giants alone took 14 penalties for 160 yards, and the Cowboys weren't much better, but it ended up being an epic ending, so that saved it. You mentioned the CFL. I'm glad you did. You're such a huge CFL fan. I'm looking at this, and I have fun with the Argo fans who wrote off their team at 2-8. Now Friday they got Montreal in town, and if the Argos win, it'll be their 4th straight win, and they'll be in a playoff spot to host with 4 games to go. It's like the league just every year is zany. And it's like people forget that this could happen.
It is zany, and sometimes I find it disappointing. If you live in what they call the GTA, so if you live in Southern Ontario, in the Toronto area, I can honestly say, for the places I've moved to, the places I've visited here in Canada and the US, that Toronto is a horrific football market. It is terrible. If you come from places like Quebec, where junior football is big, where university football is big, when you come from out west, when you're in Saskatchewan, when you're in Manitoba, Calgary, parts of BC, where football is a part of your family's life. The kids are going to play high school football. You go to the games. You hope that they go to college. There is almost none of that here. None of it. So to have a football conversation with someone in Toronto usually means it's going to be an NFL fantasy football conversation. It's going to be about the Buffalo Bills. My friends, that is not a football conversation. It just isn't. It's metrics, it's analytics. When you talk about fantasy football, you may have never played the game, or even you wouldn't even have to watch it. If you're a mathlete, you can probably be pretty good at reading numbers each and every week and kind of guessing at what you think you're going to see. That's not a football conversation. So when you start talking about the Argos, I feel bad for the 10 to 14,000 people that go every single week, and probably have since the 70s. They're marvelous people. I know a lot of them. God bless them, because they're people like Lori Bursey. I mean, you're just not going to meet a more lovely woman than that. And they show up, they watch this team for the most part work their guts out. They do. It's not like they're not trying to win. And then they have a huge announcement, and there's Vince Carter, there's Doug Flutie, and they're talking about how they're going to bring the Buffalo Bills as a partner and into the league. And I'm like, I just don't know how many more insulting waves of disappointment you can have as an Argonaut fan, because quite frankly, that was just the most insulting thing that I've ever seen, and very dangerously. And I'm not a skies falling guy. I'm a glass half full. But you start bringing this kind of stuff in there, and having Doug saying, well, when they see that the Buffalo Bills are a part of the CFL and the Argos, the young kids will get excited. No, they won't. No, that is not something that entices you to watch their product. They're saying, but hey, look over here. Let's talk about Buffalo. They're not talking about starting lineups. They're not talking about who the running back is. They're not talking about, the receiving core, or how they had to replace the defensive. They're not talking about football things. They're trying to do smoke and mirrors. And trust me, there's only so much more, I think, and so much devastation you can take from a marketing standpoint in Toronto. And that, to me, Rod, was a real dagger and was a real sword into the heart of all those people, as I said, the 14,000 strong that go on a daily basis, because that's not going to put them to 25,000. Why would you think being interested in another team in another league in another city is going to bolster what is already a stagnant football market? It's a disaster, and I got a bad feeling about this one.
So why would MLSE do it?
I don't think they have a huge love for the Argos at all. I don't see, in terms of their holdings, would they really be upset if somehow there was the death of the CFL in Toronto? And look, there's lots of guys there's lots of big names who've taken a run at wanting to have an NFL team here in Toronto, which I said would never happen. Now I'm not so sure. And those names are big and they got money. Hello, John Bon Jovi. I mean, you got guys like that who are friends of the Gillette family. You got friends who are, Jerry Jones guys. I mean, that old boy of the old school club where, if they found the land and they get, and look, they look at places of significance here in Toronto that I know a lot of people don't know about, but I certainly do. It was closer than you think, and that's a little scary. But if MLSE had their way to sort of just watch them die on the vine, that the Argos I'm talking about, where it appeared to be something dying naturally, it's kind of what corporate sports media has done to sports radio in this country, where they keep saying, "See, it's not popular anymore. Sports radio is dying. People aren't interested." But it's because you keep wiping out everybody that could bring audience to sports radio. You have slowly basically made it eat its own young. And now you're sitting there with a handful of these, kind of sports nerds that are sitting there on the radio. It's not that they don't know what they're talking about. They're just not broadcasters. They're just not telling a story. There's just no engagement. I mean, they want to sit there and tell you how smart they are about how their fantasy leagues are working in every sport. That is not broadcasting, my friends. And so therefore, they pay them very minimal money. Everyone else sits on the sideline. It's one of the reasons I came back. It's one of the reasons because I'm not going to be told when I'm done. I'm not going to be told, just like you. You're not going to be told when you're done. So this thing that I've done is coming back, and it's gaining a lot of momentum. Maybe momentum that some people didn't want to see. But at the same time, I mean, I just think that, you just have to be honest about the business that you're in. And when I take a look at MLSE and this so-called ownership of Toronto, seriously? Well, I don't remember the last ad I saw. I don't know what the marketing campaign is. I think they just have this on television. They put them at the BMO Field and hope that people show up. But maybe deep down, maybe the elephant in the room, maybe they hope people aren't going to show up. World Cup? How many home games? Well, none. They'll have no home games next year.
Let me stop you for a sec. BC Eric writes in and he says, I love this guy. Eric from BC. Skycron, our producer Corey says, okay, I'm 100% with Mike here. Word. At my own peril, I'll say this, Mike. You talked about how they wiped out sports radio. All the managers are still there. Just saying.
Yeah, what a shocker that is. And guys who have managed it for like 3 years. I mean, you start explaining to them about, maybe what you might want to do production-wise, and they're like, production? What's that?
I mean, I don't even know what the answer is. It's just
the
guys that were telling me what to do, still there. I'm not sure what they do, but
they're
making big salaries.
I want to talk about something that you had mentioned earlier in the show, and I thought it was a very, very, very good point. I hope people didn't miss exactly what it was that you said. When people started talking about the Calgary Flames and saying, wow, they didn't go out, they didn't get this player, they didn't, they didn't unload and bringing, part of a successful franchise and the many that I've seen through the decades and what they do, a big part of it is what you talked about, and that is culture. At some point, you have to change the culture, and one that players want to be a part of. So I've talked to Craig Conroy a couple of times, including at the end of the season, and said, what is it that you need to do that's going to show not only the players on the team, but the rest of the league that you're serious about team building? That's exactly what he's done, including the Dustin Wolf signing, Coronado, his signing. And you go through those kinds of things and you're like, let's settle and let's get our house right first before we just go to the vault and unload, because that's always, and to me, that's always a mistake. You can't fix those problems with just money. You can't just go out there and get the biggest name that's available and think that magically it's going to happen. I mean, look at the franchise that tried to do that over the years in any sport. Name the sport. I can tell you the team where just doing that didn't work. So Connie is basically saying, this is what we have. Now, well, guys like Anderson and certain players sort of be dished off or made to make the actual that culture stronger. Yeah, because that's how you build. But you don't do it by just getting your checkbook out. And I think that's exactly what Connie proved.
keep going, man. Like the fan said, what did the Flames do in the offseason? Doesn't matter. Like, that's the thing about the culture. Craig was a player, and not every GM was the guy in Vancouver isn't with the Canucks. They need now, Mike, to know where they stand. Huska said that the day he was hired. The players want to know where they stand. Sure, it's annoying, but they need to know. These young players need to know. Where are we going? How do you feel about me? And the Flames people understand that. Not every team does. This current Flames team understands that.
I think the ownership understands that, and sometimes that's where the battle is. When you have that discrepancy between what owners think and then the actual administration of the sport think. I mean, this is why. I mean, God bless you being a Cowboys fan, but
don't.
that is a tough. Hey, have you watched the Netflix special on the Cowboys and Gamblers? Have you seen that?
Watched that on the first day it came out. I watched all 8 episodes. Are you kidding?
Yeah. He was great on Landman. I don't know if you ever watched Landman. Landman, oh my God, that's a good show. I love that.
I threw my shoe at the TV when he was on there talking to John Hamm at his bedside. I'm like, you should be running the Cowboys, not pretending to be an actor.
He was doing a better job of that than being the owner. I got to be honest.
I know, buddy. Listen,
the Micah Parsons thing to me is just mind-boggling. Look. If anyone knows how to make money, it is that man. If anyone knows how to run something to get, I mean, let's face it. I don't know what the franchise was worth when he bought it. It was a couple $100 million, 100, 300,
170 million, I think.
So it's $13 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like you don't know, but his ego gets in the way. And I think that the toughest thing in this world to be is a Dallas Cowboys fan. I really do.
Mike, or a Leaf fan. They're the same team.
Yeah. I think the Dallas Cowboys fans are just used to being angry, where you still talk to a Leaf fan, and it's just there's this delusional thing that this is going to be our year. And I'm like, buddy, you just don't drink enough. Your problem, you got to have more Alberta,
Yeah. No, I'm in the Cowboys nation. And the thing is, I don't go back and forth with them anymore because they're brainwashed like I think Leafs fans are. They are, Mike. You need to be in the fan base to understand. You can't say anything bad about Dak. And in a lot of cases, you can't say anything bad about Jerry. I'm like, you're all brainwashed. Yeah. The way that they treated Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb dropping 3 passes on opening night, that's what happens with a bad culture. People aren't held accountable there. It's one guy. So it's sad.
But it is interesting to talk about, again, getting back to the conversation of culture, and people say, well, it's just kind of a buzzword that you can use. It makes you sound like, you're sort of in tune with sports. I said, well, the reality is, and I go back to the only conversation I had with Marv Levy, and it was of all the interviews I've done over the years of many incredible football people. The Marv Levy interview was one of the most interesting because I started talking to him about those times where they continued to go back to the Super Bowl, even though they lost. And I said to Marv, I said, well, how is that a failure in terms of the program that you were building and that you had built? Now, I get ultimately that you want to, lift that championship, the world championship football trophy over your head. But how is it a failure that you achieve excellence each and every year? And to me, that's a winning program. And there's this pause, and I thought, oh man, here it comes. I'm really going to get. He says, I love what you said, because it is a program, and that program was based on culture, and that's a culture that we created in the locker room. I was like, okay, well, we'll be back after this.
Hall of Famer. Speaking of, we're out of time. Mike, great job, man. Thanks for jumping on. The great, the inimitable Mike Richards of Fan 960 Calgary. We'll be right back with more here on Game Plus Television.